Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How are we doing? Everybody got their coffee? Good. This morning we're going to speak a little bit about rights management. We have an incredible panel. And so you have a dam. You've spent a lot of time, resources, money in putting this together. How do you get the most out of your assets? How do you get the return on your investment? How do you protect those assets? I'm going to speak a little bit about that this morning. But I thought we'd do some quick introductions, and you can talk about how you got, how we all got involved in this whole damn thing, right? Okay. My name is Frank DiCarlo. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of RPR Graphics. RPR Graphics is a pre-media company, creative operations. We support in-house marketing and advertising departments. Digital asset management is just one of the tools that we use in being an extension of your creative team. I got involved in digital asset management sometime in the 90s. I was brokering supermarket circulars, and we were scanning these same images week after week, same orange when you appear in the circular. I approached the president and said, I really think there might be a better way, and I did some research and came across something called Portfolio, which enabled you to store assets and in the tag name puts a short description. So we were able to find that orange week after week without having to cut the same mask, color correct it, and we were on our way. In the year 2000s, Dan became web browser based, and we started offering that to our clients. That's how I got involved with Dan. How about yourself, Bill?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm Bill Rosenblatt. I'm the president of Giant Steps Media Technology Strategies, which is a consulting firm that I've run for the past 18 years. How did I get involved with DAM? Well, back in the mid-90s, I was working in the publishing industry. Actually, even before that, I was working on Wall Street at a firm called Moody's, which is a bond rating agency, and we had these digital publications. Actually, they were publications that were desktop published and sent to clients, and I came up with the idea of distributing them electronically over phone lines using this cutting-edge technology that had just come out called PDF. And that required that we manage the content, that we assign metadata, that we provide a database of metadata to our customers who could then choose the reports that they wanted to look at, and so on. And then from there, I went to work in the capital P publishing industry, as opposed to small P publishing, which is what we were doing at Moody's, and ran a family of projects in what we now call digital asset management, what we used to call digital libraries, at a bunch of different publishing businesses owned by TimesMere: newspaper publishing, book publishing, magazine publishing, legal publishing, etc. Fast forward a few years, I started my consultancy, and I've worked on digital asset management related topics and kind of veered over into the rights area around, I'd always been dealing with rights issues, but I wrote a book on digital rights management in 2001, 2002 timeframe, and have been working in the rights area ever since. I do a blog called Copyright and Technology. It's all one word, copyrightandtechnology.com. I run a conference of that name, and I've done a lot of legal work in the rights technology area, as well as working with vendors of that type of stuff as well.
My name is Elizabeth Ferguson Keithley. I'm a big nerd for digital asset management systems. I got into this, my original degree is a library science degree. It's archives management with an emphasis on the preservation of paper and photographs, and we all know how lucrative that is. So as I stepped into my career of preserving photographs, it just naturally led into digital asset management. A few years ago, I wrote a textbook on it. Ralph and Henrik were both pretty involved with that, and then also Ralph actually authored a chapter in the second edition. I'm not a lawyer, I am married to one, and one of our favorite arguments that we have from time to time is, what will happen first? Will copyright law actually get sorted out, or will society collapse?
elaborate.
Yes.
Thank you. So we put together some questions for you this morning, delve a bit into this vast subject. Oh, well, thank you. First question.
So most of you own your own content. Okay, that's the world I come from, the publishing industry and also music industry. The number one best practice, I would say, from top level is regarding the business case for rights management and equally the risk factors involved. So the first question to ask is, are you doing this to cover your hiney or to make money? If you are considering doing it just for cost savings, you're barking up the wrong tree. I have never in my 18 plus years of doing this seen an ROI case for rights management that just relies on cost savings. It's got to either be risk management or revenue generation or both. And the path you go down in terms of best practices depends on which of those two is the important thing to you and to your management, to your legal department, and so on. So I'll leave it there, and we can talk more about that if you want.
I would say that, to me, the best practice that is sort of most important is training. So as an example, we were filming some of our own content, and someone who was not an employee, but someone that we were filming, burst out into song in the middle of a discussion panel, somewhat like this. And my boss, so I had asked our in-house counsel, so like, based on like the length of this, do we need to cut this out for stuff that we're licensing? And my boss looked at me and said, wait, we would have to, like, that's even an issue? A lot of people don't understand, there are a lot of nuances to copyright and trademark, and all of these things sort of overlap and they're all treated differently. And so when you get to the people that are doing the tagging, that are making the decisions, there's gotta be, from the beginning, a lot of training over this is good, this isn't, this is a gray area, and you need to be able to make a sort of a well-reasoned case for why you're making putting in each of those three categories.
For me, rights always comes down to an ethics problem, and the simple root of every rights management question that you ask on the ground, licensing and the systems is another matter, but the base of whether or not do I have the right to do this is this the way I would like to be treated? We treat other people the way we ourselves would like to be treated. So if you wrote that song, you would want to get paid when someone performed it, right? Right. So yeah, there's education that goes along with that, but as long as you treat people the way that you yourself would like to be treated, you're probably in the clear. If you see someone's picture or artwork or any kind of content, print or otherwise, if you're going to use it, you have to pay people for it because you yourself would want to get paid if someone used your likeness, your artwork, your content.
What are some examples of metadata usage that has helped and or hindered your rights management initiatives? Do they differ globally? Different restrictions for different countries?
Oh, they're all going to look at me. This is so exciting. So, who here wants to just talk for like 15 minutes about the Berne Convention? Just me. Oh, me too. I'm so excited. So actually, if you guys have been paying attention to the news, right now in Davos, they're actually talking about this. It's Davos, right? Yeah, and we just extradited someone from Canada on this issue too. There's a Chinese company called Huawei, and U.S. authorities want to arrest the daughter of one of their executives and bring her back to America for justice, and she was hiding in Canada. We had to extradite her. I find this field so exciting, so I could just babble for days. But some main points, because I've made notes that make sense. Linking rights documentation through metadata is, crucial when we're going to talk about these things. The most important thing when we're dealing with images, how many of you here have a system that is mainly predicated on imagery or video? Okay, so the majority of you. How many of you have systems that are predicated mainly upon a different type of content?
Text, let's say text.
Okay, text. Okay, so
Audio.
one person. Okay.
So we're dealing with images.
Okay, so mostly images.
Yeah.
So the best way to deal with images, if you're going to be dealing with international publication, and I know that you can't do this if you're in a sports area, and I know that you're going to have difficulty doing this if you're in like a traditional publishing area, but if you're in a corporate environment, try to own your images outright. And I know that's very difficult, but if you can own your images outright, or buy from license your images from an international, major concern, so that you always have your documentation, you'll be okay. When you get into negotiating with individual photographers or with ad agencies that aren't clear with their documentation, no, we're not licensing through smaller people. We keep all of our documentation, we're gonna own everything that we can outright. You're giving me a look, tell me what you want to say.
No,
No? Yeah,
No,
because
you're
if you don't own it outright, you're always gonna get in trouble somewhere. Somebody's gonna use that image in a way that you did not negotiate for. You cannot control people. They're gonna do what they're gonna do. So the best way to CYA across everything is just own your images outright, or license through a major stock company and keep that documentation. And please argue with me if you want to.
I would say the one thing that for us ended up being really helpful was along the way we added the ability to, for all of the content that we own, every bit of that documentation, when I pull up something in my DAM, like a page tied to a file, at the bottom of that page, there's a PDF copy of every bit of rights management, every signed contract, every release form is tied, and you can. It's not just. It doesn't just say yes, this is clear. It's I can open this PDF. I can print a copy, show it to somebody if I need it. Everything is tied back together.
Yeah, I agree with him. I would say there's really the questions about metadata. There's really kind of a Goldilocks approach here. I have seen metadata systems around rights that attempt to granularly, is that even a word, capture all the details. So for example, this is predominantly an image crowd. How many people have heard of the plus system? Henry. All right, just a handful of people. Carol. So for those of you who don't know, PLUS, which is one of these reverse engineered acronyms, it stands for Picture Licensing Universal System. It is a standard set of image licensing metadata it's out there and it's being used, and the idea is to enable kind of business-to-business communication about image licensing so that the processes can be automated. This is not DRM, this is not encryption, this is just to automate business-to-business image licensing processes through standards. Standards are always a really good idea. The PLUS system is the best thing that we've seen in the imaging community on this, in my opinion. But the problem is that it's very, very detailed, and so the barrier to adoption is pretty high, which is why fewer of you raised your hands than I might have wanted to see. So that's one end of the Goldilocks approach. The other end is you have a rights metadata field or fields in your DAM system. I refuse to say the word. I'm just not. You can say it when you can be my blank filler.
That's good.
Yeah, all right. So there can be some rights metadata fields in your
Data system.
Thank you. And they'll say, call Bob at extension 2369. And Bob is the lawyer, or Sheila is the lawyer.
Bob needs to
And
have an automated workflow. I'm not calling him.
or you message them or whatever.
It doesn't have to be voice, does it?
Contact, whatever.
Okay.
So the point is that this is your minimal approach. And the problem with that is that you're funneling all of these decisions through a very inefficient, and what if they're out sick, or what if they left and it's somebody else kind of process. And I had an engagement on this with a major, everyone knows the name, consumer magazine publisher, where this was their solution, and in particular one that reused most of their images from third-party sources. And I was like, really? Wow, okay, you know, how have you not gotten sued? Particularly since this publisher, you brought up the international issues. This is a global publisher that they publish in dozens and dozens of countries. So the just right approach is what you just said, I think, where you may not need to attempt to capture a ton of precise details about licensing unless that's really a major line of revenue for you, in which case it could be worth the effort. But making sure that the documentation is close to hand by making it easy to find, making it linked to the assets themselves, I think is a real best practice when it comes to this stuff. You know, what is your
Dam system.
but to link information to your assets, and this is a great use of it in the rights context.
By the way, since we're on international issues, how excited are we going to be if we export this Chinese person from Canada here over copyright issues, and then we're like all in the news?
Well, it's first of all, I'm not sure it's copyright issues. I think it's patent issues.
Well, okay. So I'm getting a little bit picky about what they did. Right?
Well, here's one difference. However much money there is in the copyright field, there are 2 decimal points more money involved in patents.
That's true.
At least.
At least.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So this is going to hurt a lot of people in this room, but DAM adoption must be top down. If you are pushing from below and trying to manage your manager, it's not going to happen. I've never once seen a successful DAM implementation that came from the middle ever. It's got to be top down, because when you get to these issues of, and let's just call it what it is, enforcement. I mean, we can say governance all day and try to be nice about it, but enforcement of the rules. If the people at the top aren't willing to say, you know, I'm not going to pay Bob's uncle for these photographs until I get my rights documentation, it's never going to matter. You're still going to have the same problems over and over again. And on top of that, I have a saying, which is hippos will eat what they want. So a hippo is the highest paid person's opinion. And I have seen so many DAM implementations go awry because committees have met, you've got all these people together, all the players are in place, everybody sits down at a table, we're getting ready now to evaluate our DAM vendors, we've got it down to 2 or 3. Everybody in the room at this point kind of has a favorite, and it's really probably between 2, and the people who are actually going to use and work in the system know what they want. And then the highest paid person comes in, who has really only been reported to about all these things, and says, well, you know, what you guys want is great, but I played golf with so-and-so the other day, now we're getting system X.
So I have,
and it's over.
I would like to partially disagree with what you
Go
just
for
said.
it.
Back at Times Mirror, it's long enough ago that I can name names here. This was the mid-1990s. We had a top-down mandate from chief operators of business units to implement enterprise-wide digital asset management system, which we ended up doing with Documentum. We were the first publishing industry customer of Documentum. we basically taught Documentum about the publishing industry because they didn't know it from a hole in the ground back then. And it was, to put it charitably, a mixed success. Mostly it was a failure. Why was it a failure? Because, well, many reasons, but the relevant one is all the chief people said, we're going to do this now, they got ignored. By the people who actually have to do stuff, they got ignored. And
that's a management problem, then, not a data problem.
Well, everything that you just talked about is a management problem.
That's true.
So, the problem is twofold. Getting top management buy-in is crucial, it's necessary, but it's not sufficient. The other problem comes from the bottom end, where you have a committee of 9,700 people in a room sitting down agreeing on all the requirements, and nothing happens until the OK button is the shade of purple that so-and-so wants it to be. That's another problem. But we're talking about a business case for rights management here, and I want to echo what you said. Revenue is the ticket. Never seen a successful business case based on cost savings, because at the end of the day, what does cost savings mean? Someone in management is signing up for firing people.
Well, here's a way around that.
Okay.
So, digital asset management systems are in many ways, to me, like email. And we don't expect email to generate figures of cost savings and things like that. What we're talking about are administrative fees, basically the cost of doing business. And once you start putting it like that and start, letting people understand this is just the way things are done now, just as we move from paper memos into email, we're now going to move from individual drives into a DAM, and this is the cost of doing business. This is an administrative cost, which is really what a DAM is. It's not sexy, it's not hot, but you can also point out that the businesses that got their email systems first did better than the businesses that got their email systems last.
Yeah, that may be true, but it's never gotten someone to sign yeah?
Yeah, how do you sell not hot and not sexy?
Smart.
I've never gotten that.
You sell it as smart, and you sell it as an advantage over your competitors. And the people who are in upper management now are old enough to remember when email moved in, and the people who resisted email are gone, and the people who went with it and have moved up. Now, we are seeing at the other end of that spectrum, we're seeing the end of email, because email is really a stepping stone, before DAM, because of the way file transfer works, because of the way that workflows work. When you log in at work, right now, when we go in every day, we all log into our email. Eventually, in 10 years or less, we'll all just be logging into some sort of management environment that is not traditional email.
Well, I want to bring this back to rights, if I may, which is, there is, despite how it may seem, I'm actually an optimist about business cases around rights management, around revenue. There are a lot of revenue sources that if you actually think about it and put some work into it, you can identify. And the trouble is that oftentimes the people who are called upon to run these systems are several degrees removed from the revenue opportunities, and the key thing to do is to bring the people who could potentially be involved in the revenue opportunities together with the people who have to run these systems, get them in a room and kind of go, here's how this would work and here's what you could do, and then the light bulbs start to go on and people come to some common understanding of what the business case could be. And it's often, things that, so-and-so over here had a glimmer of an idea about, so-and-so over here had maybe thought about a little and had a wish list item, so-and-so over here thought about it operationally, and you put them all together and you come up with a plan. And then at the end of the day, if you do it all right and the planets align, you get a management person saying, yes, I'm willing to sign up for X million in revenue next fiscal year, because of these capabilities that we're bringing in, and that's when you get the checks signed for the whatever it is that you're doing, the systems, the process changes, the all the stuff you have to do, the integration and all that stuff.
I can think of one example of a way in which you can sell cost saving as the primary purpose. Get sued.
That's great.
The first time you get sued for violating someone else's rights because you sold something you didn't have the rights to, they will very quickly implement a system of rights management, and they are willing to spend, because getting sued is way more expensive than even getting sued and winning is way more expensive than your dam will ever be.
You've got my buy-in.
So why don't you want to use the word down?
Come on, Bill, we're all dying to know.
There are too many. I've had too many years of bad puns around it.
There are never too many bad puns.
So let's go on to the next day in question. What to watch out for and/or pain points in starting a rights management solution? Can you cite some examples?
All right. Well, gosh, where do I start? Are there, Henry?
Getting sued is usually the first thing.
Well, that's a great thing. So I mean, your point is great. I've heard many people say, yeah, this rights management stuff sounds like a wonderful idea, and I guarantee you that the moment we get sued, my boss will let me implement this.
Yep.
That's usually how it works.
Yeah, because again, I mean, and I know you disagree with me, but I really do think it is top down. If we don't have those managers at the top who are going to come down and say, we're going to do this, it's never going to happen.
Well, it's top down and bottom up. That's what I.
You have to have buy-in from the bottom, or you're still going to have that one photo editor who everything gets named descriptively, with a 14-word long title, and Rev 6, Rev 7, Final 2. And it's like, no, you have to follow our naming convention. It's got to go into the dam. It can't be saved on your desktop. It can't. If you don't have that buy-in at the bottom, the best system in the world isn't going to help you. But you also, like you said, it's the people at the top who,
At the end
write
of the day,
checks. And
yeah, at the end of the day, somebody's got to say, if you don't do this, I'm afraid you don't work here.
Yeah. So I mean.
And I mean, if you need to have a lot of carrots before you deploy that stick, but at the end of the day, the buck stops somewhere.
So to generalize that a little, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Getting people to stop hoarding things on their hard drives and getting people to observe naming conventions, to assign metadata, that's a very big pain point. But just to generalize it a little bit, just implementing processes around rights that everyone agrees on and implements. That I would say is a larger scope pain point, which encompasses what you just said, but getting the processes in place. And part of what's difficult about implementing these off-the-shelf systems like the film tracks of the world is that they impose a process on you. Now, to a good extent, the better systems will let you define what that process is. They'll be flexible about it. But you still have to define a process, and you've got to get buy-in to that process. You got people to actually do it. And that's really what I think. Once you're past the business case and you're into the implementation, getting people, and you're the one who said training. So training is part of getting people on board to that process and getting people to not just do the right things, but also make the right judgment calls in certain. And I'll give you you asked for a real life example. I'll give you a real life example. I wrote, as I mentioned, a book about digital rights management, and someone wanted to include a figure from my book in a journal article, in an academic or scientific type journal. And so this is sort of a meta thing, because I wrote a book about digital rights management, and this is about the rights management of a figure in the book about digital rights management. So let's ignore what the book was about for a moment. Doesn't matter. with the publisher. John Wiley was the publisher, and the author of the journal article asked me for permission to use the figure, and I said, well, I can't really give you that. You have to go to the publisher for that, to their rights and permissions department. So we together went to someone who had no clue about business judgment and said, $300, please. And I said, you don't understand. This is an academic journal. It's a nonprofit. It's a .org. This is promotion for the book. What you should be asking, what you should be telling this guy is, use the figure. Here's the attribution line we want. And the reaction that I got was, oh, okay.
Good negotiation.
So, what does that tell you about the problems at John Wiley and Sons Rights and Permissions Department? It tells you a lot.
I think I still am scarred from the last video rights management workflow I tried to implement somewhere, and I mean, just talking about this, I'm like, I still want to punch that guy. I would never hit anyone in public. I mean, to me, the biggest pain points just have to do with staffing. Just staffing, because at the end of the day, it's people. It's all people. To go back to the empathy talk that Rebecca gave at the end of the day yesterday, these are people, and we're going to have management issues, and people have to be motivated. And at the end of the day, whether or not your rights management workflow is going to work is a staffing issue.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about. I was going to say the same thing. It's about training. It's about those judgment calls, and 90% of rights management is going to be a gray area. It's going to be probably this is okay, but there's no way to know for sure unless we end up in court. And so it's about getting everyone who's making that judgment call trained to a level of consistency where you know that it doesn't matter who on your team is making that judgment call, who's putting the data into your dam, they're all going to make the same decision. And then, this is a big issue that we have, that it's consistently, just the wording is going to get consistent going into the dam. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest pain points that I've ever encountered in every dam system and every type. Getting the metadata to be consistent, because if it's not consistent, it's not searchable.
And that goes back to the panel yesterday that had to do with, careers and how much do we pay people and how much should people be paid for this kind of thing and take their own career. I mean, everything that we've talked about yesterday and today, it all ties together. You can't, we're doing our best to stay focused on rights here, but the rights management is predicated upon these other issues. So it's all one bundle, and we'll just try to pick out the rights management stuff.
Very good. We left some time for some questions.
Great. I was just going to say, in my experience with it's education, and top to bottom, bottom to top, all the way around, because we're talking about, for example, today an image and copyright. Well, we could be talking about more than one copyright. We could be talking about the building's copyright that's in that image. We could be talking about the model releases. There for a while, we routinely had photographers that we owned. It was a work for hire, so to speak. But we never owned the model releases, come to find out. And that's a whole nother ballgame. Don't get me started on video. I share your pain.
I know. Oh my God, it's such a nightmare.
It really is, and I think as dam managers, what we need to do as best we can is get in a really good relationship with legal, and try to get them so that they'll back you up, but be in a position to educate them, because it's also too, like with stock images. Just because you use stock images doesn't mean you can turn around and give them to your third party that's going to do whatever.
A common mistake with the rights to stock images is that The ad company that you have hired has licensed that image, but they did not license it in the name of their client. They licensed it in the name of the ad agency. So when you are creating content and you are the publisher of that content, you need to hold the license to use that image, not the ad agency. I know that sounds Byzantine and weird, but it's true.
Everything about law is Byzantine and weird.
Yeah.
It's also about when you're building the environment for rights management, is understand what department is doing the negotiation for the asset. Once you, whether it's a PLM with Agile, with Oracle, you find out where that negotiation is going on and that information resides, and then link that to your data. That's where you're going to get success. And I also think that dams today can help you with rights management without a doubt. They have triggers on the dates, purpose, and things like that.
But you're assuming someone's monitoring all that.
Well, look at, you start with payments, right? And you build governance around that. A lot of brands, especially cosmetic, they have legal departments negotiating perpetuity on the assets and product shops, things like that. You just tap that connection.
Just to go back to the previous comment that was made about educating your legal department. Also, be open for it to go the other way. A lot of damn people, even a lot of people that are running rights management, are not necessarily lawyers. So when you're in-house counsel or when you retain counsel and they're, get them to explain to you or explain to you, whatever it is, why. Get them, because that's gonna help. The more you understand about how, copyright and trademark and patent all sort of overlap, and as was mentioned, buildings can have trademarks or copyrights. Music, but music, the writer, the performer, the singer, there can be different copyrights for each of those people. There are a lot of ways in which all of these things overlap, and if we can be better at rights management if we sort of educate ourselves more about some of the specific laws around a lot of this stuff.
But it's two ways.
Yeah.
Lawyers don't know a damn thing.
Right.
He said,
I said it there, I said it. Most lawyers don't know about digital asset management, just like most digital asset management people don't know copyright law or much about licensing. And the value of getting, and so you've got digital asset management people, you have the marketing people, and you've got the legal department, and they just don't collaborate enough in most situations, in my experience. And just getting them in the room, just to do a workshop to kind of raise awareness, mutual awareness about what has to happen when an asset goes out the door to somebody. The legal department isn't going to know about that. They're just going to be the ones who often have to say, sorry, you can't do this. And then maybe sometimes they'll get to tell you why you can't do this. Maybe sometimes someone will ask, why can't I do this? Instead of saying, oh, okay. So it's really all about, you use the word education, that's a good word for it.
And on the topic of education, we should all be sharing our stories with each other. Please write about your work and your experiences and the things that you find and the things that you want other people to know. In the DAM community, we're really good about getting up and having presentations, and I love this conference, this is great. But everybody in here has something worth publishing. There's a guy named Ralph Windsor right back there. Raise your hand, Ralph. He will publish your article about digital asset management if you write it well. And if you don't write it well, he'll refer you to somebody like me, and I'll help you write it, and you'll still put your name on it, and I won't say anything. But the point is that we all need to be building up more educational resources for each other on these topics. And we can all do it. Everybody in here can write an article on rights management or any other topic that we've discussed today because we're all in it doing the work. So please do.